All right. Hey everyone, I'm going to be kind of talking you through this lesson that I've done with my students, and then based on this week's module, how I'm going to be kind of adapting it to help them with their writing style and just getting them more interested in different ways that they can write. So right here, this is my haiku course I use for my class, and we have been studying Jefferson and the things that he's done in his presidency. And so one of the first lessons we did was talking about Adams versus Jefferson and kind of this fight that they've been having between each other. And so in the past, what I've done is I've had students read portions of an online textbook, as you can see, and then what they did is they used what they learned from their textbook to create an Instagram. And so this is kind of that platform for them. And in their Instagram, they could choose who they wanted to be, if they wanted to be Adams or if they wanted to be Jefferson, and then what kind of things that they would post. And so they would pick an image, they could create an image, or they can find like a meme that they wanted to use and then post that from their person, like I said, either Adams or Jefferson. And then down here, these speech bubbles, is they had to create another Instagram handle of someone who would comment. So, for instance, like Jefferson was a person who sided with the French, and so if a student chose to do that, then they could have had someone commenting as if they were a French supporter who wanted to help out Jefferson, or John Adams was a Federalist, and so they could have had someone who was also a Federalist, like Alexander Hamilton, commenting about the image below. And so it gave them an opportunity to be creative in selecting who they wanted to do their image on, but also a way for them to be creative in the things that they were commenting on and what other aspects they had to that. Some other things I've been adding to this, going back to this assignment here, is after the students were able to kind of read this exchange between John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, and then going into the election of 1800, I wanted them to kind of play around with what other things were happening during this time. So in the election of 1800, just some background knowledge, Adams loses to Jefferson, and Jefferson was John Adams' vice president. So Adams loses to Jefferson, and now there's a different political party in control of the White House. And so I wanted my students to kind of play around with that. And so I gave them instructions for making a podcast. And so I basically gave them this small little template that showed them what things that they need to include. They need to kind of talk about their topic, obviously, and then put in some good transitions. So again, let them kind of play around with things that they could add. And I had to see a written script, some form of written script, so that I knew they had some kind of idea of where they wanted to go in their podcast. So going back to my haiku course, they would maybe watch this election of 1800 video from YouTube and then incorporate some of those things into their podcast, or incorporate some of these different things from the articles above into their podcast and things like that. The final thing that I recently got students really interested in doing is making a newspaper. And so I found this newspaper template that students can kind of adapt. And so I had a student, and this is a student's example, make a newspaper for Thomas Jefferson. And she wanted to do the perspective of Thomas Jefferson, but then she calls it the Jefferson drama. And middle schoolers are really into drama. And so she started to put in images with our articles and then adding to them. But I let them decide anything that they wanted to put, whether it was about Thomas Jefferson or about John Adams or anything around the election of 1800. And so what I did is, instead of doing a typical paper or typical just written response, I wanted to give them kind of their agency in selecting how they wanted to show what was going on around these time periods. So that kind of fits into that multimodal just experience of what students are trying to do, and making it realistic for them really is giving them opportunities to make a podcast or do the Instagram or make a newspaper and see how to edit that and get it interesting for people to want to read. So, thanks.